Hi, and welcome to the Caribbean Connect, where we bring students all over the Caribbean with one common goal: CSEC exams, primarily CSEC Information Technology. Today, we are going to look at Pascal programming for CSEC. In our previous video, we looked at an introduction to programming. We would have looked at the algorithm, we would have looked at the pseudocode. Now we're going to look at another representation of a program, or at least we're going to look at the prerequisites to jump into Pascal programming. So, first of all, some of us may wonder, what is Pascal programming? By definition, it is a high-level procedural programming language designed by Nicholas Wirth to promote good programming practices through structured programming and data structuring. Known for its easy-to-read syntax and emphasis on teaching programming fundamentals, particularly due to its clear structure and strong type checking. It was named after the French mathematician Blaise Pascal. So with that said, it kind of paints a narrative that this is relation or has some sort of relationship with maths, right? Because it was named after a mathematician. So in Pascal, just like in any other programming language, you are going to see what you call relational operators, for example, such as your less than, your greater than sign. There is some overlap that you see in programming in general that you see in math. But Pascal was developed with students in mind. So this is why most teachers throughout the Caribbean use Pascal as the main programming language that they teach students, so you get a better understanding of the programming constructs. These constructs, such as your if statement, your for loop, your while loop, and so on, are things that you are going to see in any other programming language that you use. So once you understand the concepts for one particular language, it's easy for you to transition to several other programming languages. Now, some teachers within the Caribbean do not teach Pascal. Pascal, to be honest, is sort of an outdated programming language. It isn't really used much in the production environment in the real world, but it is a great tool for teachers to use for students to understand programming. Okay? So next, when we talk about Pascal, we cannot leave out the fact that it's a third generation programming language. What do we mean by that? So if we think about generations of programming languages, we look at maybe a first generation or the earliest programming languages to the most recent. And yes, we need to know this because questions on this may come for the CSEC exam. They typically do. So your first generation of programming languages is called binary. So that's your ones and zeros, like what you're seeing to the right side of this slide. So if we think of the physical computer, the computer works with charges. Maybe we can represent it as a high voltage and a low voltage, a high being a 1 and a low being a 0. So we have a series of ones and zeros running through the computer. And our precursor to programming is understanding the basic concept of hardware and software. So software tells the hardware what to do. So when we are looking at binary, these ones and zeros are being used as instructions to direct the hardware to do certain tasks so that the computer can run. So initially, all there was ones and zeros. It would have been before my time even, but I can't say for sure. If someone was coding in ones and zeros and then they fell asleep and they would have just dreamt about ones and zeros and it was getting, tedious. So someone decided that there needed to be an easier way to do this. Instead of using the ones and zeros, we could make this more human-like, more relatable to the average person. So there became a second generation of programming languages called assembly. So what assembly, or in fact the example of the code that we have for assembly is MOV, as in move, AX, 5. So for those of us who remember our hardware, we would identify that within the CPU, we have storage called registers. So move AX, 5 means to take an integer value of 5 and store it in a register called AX. That's what assembly is about. It's giving simple instructions to do an assignment, for example. Third gen, on the other hand, examples we have would be C++, Java, Pascal, and yes, some of our CSEC students learn Java instead, or they learn C instead. Even at CAPE, it is mandated that students learn C programming, right? So at this level, we would just have something like AX, an arrow sign if we are using pseudocode, but if we are using actual Pascal programming, we would say AX : equal 5. That would mean take 5 and store it in a variable or a storage space called AX. Now I'm using some interesting terms that you can look forward to hearing more of and understanding thoroughly when we go through the next video I'm going to do in this programming series. Okay? But for now, just understand that as we move up a level or we move up a generation, it gets easier for the programmer to understand and it gets easier for the programmer to code. So when we move away from third gen to fourth gen, we have stuff like SQL, which is a structured query language. Then we have MATLAB and so on. And for the students looking to write your CSEC exam within this year, next year, it's a hot topic, artificial intelligence. So going back to the fourth gen, SQL statements, you would have had stuff like select name from table where ID equal. So it's more English-like, more human-like. Again, we say as you move up a level, it gets easier to understand and to some degree easier to implement. Then we have artificial intelligence, which is your fifth gen, which is a low code, or as some would even say, no code environment. You can get AI to create programs for you. All right. And then we have drag and drop solutions and so on. So here now we have a compiler. Now, what is a compiler? A compiler is something, a tool that is used to convert source code into machine code. Now, you're seeing some terms and it may seem strange to you. Now, a lot of terms in IT are interchangeable. So when we say source code, we are just talking about the programming language that you are using at the point in time. So if you're using a third gen programming language like Pascal, the computer needs to understand your Pascal program. So that language has to be converted into machine code, which we know as binary. Some may even call it object code. So it comes like someone who is speaking Spanish. They have to get what you call a translator to convert your language from one thing to another. So in programming, where we have several languages, we need to be able to convert the code that we write using our tool. I don't want to use too much terms to confuse you. So for now, we use a particular tool or set of tools to write programs, some developer tools, I'll leave it as that. We need to have something to convert that code, that Pascal code, into machine code or object code or binary. It's the same thing. And that tool is called a compiler. Another term that we need to know for CSEC, we see it often in your paper one, is something called an interpreter. Just like we have someone to do a Spanish or French interpretation, an interpreter does not convert an entire paragraph or entire piece of code all at once. By definition here, we see that it's a computer program that directly executes instructions written in a programming language, line by line, translating the source code into machine code as it runs. So this interpreter converts our Pascal code into ones and zeros, one line at a time. And here I just listed 3 Pascal compilers, 3 of the more common compilers that teachers may use with students. One is Dev Pascal. Dev has a line of programming languages that they support. So you can get Dev C, Dev C++, Dev Pascal, and so on. It's quite popular. We have Free Pascal, which is another quite popular program. And I teach my students using PASCAL ABC. It's not common on the market, but I see it as one of the simple interfaces that students have used and they just run with it. All right. And I even put the link here. So I'm going to walk you through the steps of installing a Pascal compiler. So if we go to PASCAL ABC, if you click on the link, let's see where it takes us. So it takes us to the download page for the Pascal compiler. We just hit download here via this button and we would get the compiler. I already downloaded it a little while ago. So I'm just going to launch it. So English, just as with any other basic installation, just try to be positive. Next, yes, yes, next, that sort of thing. Make sure the directory is the directory you want to install it in. The default is usually good. We install. So while this is installing, let me express again that most, if not all of us who are looking to do SBAs, you have to write your Pascal programs. You have to compile it. You have to run it. And this is a great program for you to do just that. Pascal ABC, unlike most compilers, compiles and runs in one step. So it's not a 2-step program. It's simply a 1-step. But as we go into the program itself, we will see how the tool works and so on. All right, so this takes a few minutes to install. All right, it should be finished any minute. Right, and now our installation is complete. So we just close that off. And on our desktops, we should have, not my Halo, we should have Pascal ABC. So this is the icon that you're going to see on your desktop for the Pascal ABC installation as you launch it. Let's see. This is basically where we should be at. So you see the name of the Pascal program, and in here, we are going to create some awesome source code. All right. So that is it for today's presentation. To follow up to this video, we are going to actually create Pascal programs. We can look at the concepts of your variables, of your data types, all of these things that are needed to create the programs, but we're going to learn those concepts while coding. All right. So thanks for tuning in. Again, if you want to get more great content like this, please like, share, and subscribe. Take care.